Welcome. We are here backstage with Geoffrey Morrissey. We aren't technically backstage. We've actually sort of been locked out of the Sinclair, which is not a travesty because the car seat headrest is sound checking, so you'll actually be able to hear us talk, which is nice.
Yeah, but by the elevators.
Yeah, exactly, by the elevators. And we are joined by Lucy Dacus. We could not be more excited. You've done so much press promo for all this. We cannot thank you enough for making time for us, so thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no, thanks for wanting to talk.
And then, so, this can't be your first Boston show, right?
No, we played Boston twice before. We actually played Boston on our first tour when we were a three-piece in March of 2015, and it was like after that horrible snowstorm.
Oh my God,
it was still when cars were like completely enclosed in snow. In March, it's like supposed to be spring at that point. But yeah. And then we played at the Middle East last April. Maybe?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the snow did not melt from that particular winter until like June or July was when the last of it was gone.
Dang.
It was quite a sight to see.
I can't imagine living here in those conditions.
It was tough. It definitely, I'm not going to lie, I liked the winter, but that was a rough one to say the least. But your album, No Burden, has a really cool Boston connection. I understand that some Berkeley kids actually got the chance to play on it, right?
Yeah, Colin Pastor mixed, engineered, and helped produce it. And he's a longtime friend of mine from Richmond, but he went to Berkeley, and Hayden Kocher did the drums, and he went to Berkeley as well, and Christine Mode, I'm pretty sure she went to Berkeley also. I mean, she's friends with that whole crew, but I'm actually not positive.
Well, that is really cool. We always like to be able to see the connections back to our little city.
Yeah.
But you said that it took you like only, 20 hours to actually record the album? Is that something that you would be open to doing again? Or because I can only imagine like how hectic those 20 hours must have been.
Yeah, it was kind of my style. We did like 4 practices before to write all the parts. That I would want more time with, like pre-production sort of stuff. But the recording, if you know how you want it to sound, I can't imagine taking like a month or months in a studio the way some bands do. I mean, the recording took that long, and then mixing took 4 months. So to put it in perspective, like it wasn't just this super quick process, but that part of it was definitely pretty swift.
Nice. So now I understand that you studied film. That was your college major. What were the biggest similarities sort of between making a movie or working on a movie and making an album?
Yeah, they are really similar. When you're making a product like from start to finish and your name is going to be on it, like at least in my case, I try to be thoughtful about every element that goes into it. And with movies, it's huge. I mean, like set design and like casting and writing and editing, like there's room for creativity in all of those facets, but I'm kind of disenchanted with the film industry, so I'm not really excited about that the way I am with music. With music, I can write the song and then play it, and everything that I'm saying, I know that I fully believe in. You know, with film, you're working with a team, which can be really good, but can also mix in other people's visions that might not align with your own.
No, totally. And then sort of speaking of industries, you were sort of thrown into the music industry fairly quickly. And in 3 months, you were kind of given an education in terms of like labels coming after you, all that usually takes, years for most people to sort of learn that much. How intense was that, if that makes sense? Like what was that experience like, sort of then being thrust into the quote unquote music industry?
It was intense, and it's still intense, especially thinking that you have learned something and being shown that it's wrong, or just having a preconceived notion of what the music industry is, or having an expectation for what touring is like, and then living it and seeing that it is different than what at least I thought it was going to be. But what I've come to be frustrated by is that I think the reason why it has been so intense is because nobody shares with each other how this stuff goes down. Like there's this weird kind of mystery surrounding the music industry, and I think that the best thing you can do once you've lived it is share your experience. And so I've tried to do that a little bit more.
Yeah, no, and totally. I saw that was a really cool interview with Pitchfork. Like that was the one that I was thinking where it was like kind of like chronicled everything.
Yeah, it was a weird one to do. For some reason, it does feel like you're not supposed to talk about the music industry analytically.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it seems like that would help the most people who are interested in being involved.
Definitely. I think that there's always just kind of this notion that an album is made in a day and it gets to your ears and nothing kind of happens in between or
Right.
before. So it's always kind of nice to shine a light on that. But I understand that you are a prolific journaler. When was the last time you sort of looked through one of your old journals, and what did you learn or realize when you did?
Well, I just lost a bunch of my journals. They were stolen from me in Chicago the end of March. And so when I got home from that tour, I went back and looked at my most recent journal entries since then. And it was like 3 years of journaling had been lost. And
Oh, wow.
it's weird to look back and see the beginnings of things that I know what the ending is now. You know, and be like, this is how I felt when I met this person, but now we're close friends, or I thought we were going to be close friends and now we're not. And yeah, just seeing how relationships have developed is probably the weirdest thing, and seeing who's a consistent character like since middle school to now and how those friendships have changed.
Totally. And then, so I found this crazy. Tyler Williams of The Head and the Heart is a part of your management team. How did that all kind of like happen and come about?
Yeah, Tyler's a Richmond dude, and we actually, I just moved, but we were like 2 blocks away from each other. And when I made the record, I was planning on just putting it on Bandcamp, but then we were like, well, we could maybe try to get signed by a label. We don't really know what goes into that. And so I asked advice from him just as a friend, like, hey, you've done this before. Not asking to like send it to anybody, but kind of like, what should I look out for in people? And he gave me a bunch of advice. He cared about the album, and eventually it just became clear that it was more than advice. He was really just managing me, and it's been cool since. It's cool to be working with someone who I feel like I can really trust because I knew them before any of this happened.
No, that's really cool. I could totally hear you covering Rivers and Roads as well, which I know is kind of like a weird side note, but like I would love to see that happen if the opportunity arises. So what do you think has been like the most surreal part of the past year? Like one of those moments that you went, wow, I can't believe this is happening.
It's so funny. I immediately think of being at Newport Folk Fest. I didn't play, but I played an after show, and I got to go to the festival. And I walked by Patti Smith, and I could have just like reached out and touched her and said something and told her like, "Hey, you're really important to me." Or Just Kids probably changed my mindset about, you know, writing and vulnerability. But I kind of just stood still and let her pass, and I was like, "What life am I living that I can just like be in the same place as Patti Smith?" And there's other stuff like that, like just kind of the institutions that we've come into contact with, like Lollapalooza. Like I went to Lollapalooza for 2012 and 2013, having no aspirations or idea that I would play it, and then we played it this year, and I don't know, it's stuff like that. And like my friends that I went to Lollapalooza with were there with me, and some of them were on tour with us, like selling our merch, doing tour management. So it feels kind of full circle in those moments.
No, that's really cool. And Newport Folk I went to the Newport Folk Festival for the first time this year. It's one of those weekends that is just filled with surreal moments. Like, it's just such a cool place to be. I cannot say enough good things about it. But you have been doing a ton of these interviews, especially over this past week or so. What do you wish you got asked more often?
I guess it's hard to think of like specific questions, though I think of asking artists this too, like, what do you wish people would ask you about? I wonder what it would be like if journalists asked artists, like, what do you make other than music? And like basically musicians are just creative types, and I talk to a lot of musicians who drop off the type of like the other work they do, like they drop off in painting, or they don't make movies anymore in my case, or they don't write poetry as much, or they don't journal because they're focusing on the music because it becomes their career and it takes up their time. So I wonder if journalists were like asking musicians that, would they feel like there was a place for it? And I guess that's not specific to me, but in general I think that that's a really cool question to ask musicians.
Now, are you making anything else other than music?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I journal. I have this idea for a print publication that I'm working on.
That'd be cool.
It's really not fleshed out. I probably shouldn't even talk about it. But yeah, I think that now that there's a little bit of an audience looking at me, like, that's cool that they're looking at my work, but I care about a lot of work that isn't my own. So I'm trying to figure out how to redirect eyes to other artists and musicians and writers that I think make really good work.
Well, that is really cool. I like that. So if you could steal a song, that's kind of the antithesis of what you were just saying, but if you could steal a song from another artist, what song would you kind of steal? Make your own?
Well, we do covers. I mean, that's kind of... we love playing Dancing in the Dark by Bruce Springsteen.
That's a great one.
That's kind of like... I mean, I grew up listening to Springsteen, and the lyrics to that song are just so good and relatable. It just feels really good to sing, to listen to. It's just like a straight-up 100% good song, in my opinion.
That is a good one, and I like that that's the one that you take off of that album, because I feel like the tendency is always to go to I'm on Fire. Like,
Yeah.
I've heard so many covers of I'm on Fire, and they're all gorgeous voices, but it's like always done the same way.
Right.
But I like that. I like Dancing
You should
in the
check
Dark.
out Shaky Graves' cover of I'm on Fire if you're looking for a new take
Shaky
on
Graves?
that song, Shaky Graves.
Okay, I will definitely
think
check
it's on
that out.
YouTube. All my favorite things by him are just like YouTube stuff, so I hope it's all still there.
Actually, we were just talking about this a quick second ago, but the Staves have been, like, their version of I'm on Fire is another great one.
Oh, man.
But what are you listening to right now? This will be my last question. What artists have your ear?
Big Thief, their album Masterpiece. I love getting asked this question because my
Okay.
answer is the same and has been this whole year. It's all records from this year. Andy Schaaf's The Party, Town That Get Down, Stay Down, A Man Alive, Pine Grove's album Cardinal, and then the Car Seat Headrest album Teens of Denial, which is great because we get to see them another 12 times on this tour.
Which is totally awesome. Again, Lucy Dacus touring with Car Seat Headrest. The album is No Burden. It is out now on Matador Records for the world to hear. But Lucy, thank you so much for taking the time with us today, and break a leg.
Thank you, Jeff.